This your man's Dykkon IsaR.A.N. And welcome to Quietest Kept with Soul Knows, where I tell the tales of the unspoken. Season 1 Detroit Classic, Episode 2 Proving Ground. Before we even get to the stew, you gotta understand the energy around that time. See, I'm a summer baby. It's July, and I just turned sweet 16. And you know I got my driver's license. Oh boy. It sounds like Donkey Kong. Real quick, this your man's Dykkon IsaR.A.N. And thank you for tuning in to Quietest Kept, the Soul Knows. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing and you're liking what you're seeing, please support the channel by going to www.payola313.bitcartel.com. Again, that's www.payola313.bitcartel.com, and get your official merch from there and help support the channel. I got big discounts on there, so it's like 65% off, so don't get sticker shock, because it supports what we're doing and help us be able to create more content. This pod is powered by the merch site payola313bitcartel.com, and also aliveshoes.com/brand/payola. So please support the brand. We appreciate it, man. Peace. On the west side of Detroit, Finkel, Wyoming was the strip. Summer nights, weekend nights, that spot be banging. You had the Mickey D's sitting right on the corner of Finkel and Wyoming. And then the White Castle down by Wyoming in the lodge. Cars lined up, music loud, people out just being seen. If you had a whip or you was trying to chase some girls, you went to the strip. Over the years, the strip moved around the city. But at that time, Finkel, Wyoming was the one. I would be out there in my mama's car. Jason, who he like a year older than me, he'd be in his mama's car. And sometimes it was just the fellas off the block. But that was the atmosphere around me when this next part of the story happened. You know what I'm talking about? So to even get into the stew, first thing I had to do was buy a reel, or analog tape. Jason picked me up in his mom's car, and we went out to Dearborn to Wonderland Music. I bought a 2-inch, 24-track analog reel. I think it was a Tascam. The reel cost me about $250. This was the most tracks you could have on a recording medium back then. And artists like MJ, Michael Jackson, they used these. I was basically had my money gone before we even hit record. Jason was the one who booked the studio time at Proving Ground Studios. He already had to connect over there, so he called the spot and locked in a Saturday session. I thought I was just going to, record a track, hit the stew. I ain't know that Saturday I was about to run into the whole roster of people tied to Rural One Records. When I walked in the proving ground, one of the first people I saw was my childhood friend, Carlos Small, who y'all know as DJ Los, the original DJ Los. We went to elementary school together. His father was there too, world-renowned percussionist Carl Butch Small. He was one of the owners and execs of World One Records. And my relationship with Butch was not just through Los. He had a girlfriend, Marilyn Fortner, that lived next door to my granddad. So there was times where I would see Butch over there separate from Los. Marilyn has a brother named Michael Fortner. Michael and Butch are best friends. Later on down the line, Michael would end up being my lawyer and getting me out of some legal trouble. So you can see this wasn't no 6 degrees of separation. We was family. When I came through the door, they showed me familiar love, like I was already family. It was not who is this or give him his respect. It was we know him already. That's our people. It felt like family walking in. And when Jason saw how Butch already knew me and the kind of love they showed me, his temperature changed a little bit. He tried to conceal it like, oh, I ain't know they knew each other. I can't even say if it was negative or positive, but I did notice. That same day, I got introduced to Mr. Maxey, who was in a management type role, a respected Highland Park High School counselor or teacher or something like that. I met Gene David. Gene was not just around, he was also an owner at World One. And he handled a lot of like the A&R type role for the label. Gene is definitely gonna matter later on down the line. They welcomed me with open arms. And it wasn't just the owners. I met the artists on World One too. I met MC Easy B, free MC Easy B, who was DJ Los's MC. That was my first time and only time meeting him. Later on, he would get convicted on a homicide case and end up doing a triple life sentence. To this day, he's still locked up. That's why I say free Easy B, you know what I'm talking about? I also met Chaos, Rico Brent, that same day. Here's the thing about Chaos. By the time I met him, he already knew he was my replacement. He already knew me and Jason used to be a group. Me and Jason both knew we weren't in a group anymore. Before this day, we had already talked about flipping it into me getting signed to the label because he already had a deal with him and my situation needed changing fast. So without me even having the language for it back then, I was already alchemizing that shift from us being a group to us being co-producers on this track and me quietly vying for a position on World One roster. This was my first time ever laying eyes on Chaos in person. And even all that, in the air, Chaos gave me open arms. He showed me a lot of love, real respect. So that let me know whatever Jason had been telling him about me before I walked in, he must have been speaking highly of me. I ain't know it yet, but meeting Chaos in that moment, that was also a pivotal point to this whole story. After all those introductions, then it was time to go to work. Real quick, this your man's Dykkon IsaR.A.N, and thank you for tuning in to Quietest Kept, the soul knows. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing and you're liking what you're seeing, please support the channel by going to www.payola313.bitcartel.com. Again, that's www.payola313.bitcartel.com and get your official merch from there and help support the channel. I got big discounts on there, so it's like 65% off, so don't get sticker shock because it supports what we're doing and help us be able to create more content. This pod is powered by the merch site payola313bitcartel.com and also aliveshoes.com/brand/payola. So please support the brand. We appreciate it, man. Peace. So I told them I needed to build a track, so they set me up in the pre-production room at Proving Ground. I didn't even know what the rate was, but I know I had to rent a room with the equipment because I didn't have my own equipment. I gave them $65 down up front on the hourly time, and we went in there and started building. Me and Jason put the music together in that room as co-producers. We had gone from trying to be a group to now being two producers building this record in front of a label that I was hoping to end up on. Once the track was built, we decided to take a break. I stepped out to go get some lunch. What I didn't know was that the clock was still running on the pre-production room. While I was gone, I was being charged the whole time. Nobody broke that down to me up front. I was spending money, but I didn't have my own representation there. And it was really Mr. Wonderful's money I was moving around. So after we came back from lunch, got back to the studio, we moved from pre-production into straight production. The track had been built already, so now it's time for me to go lay my vocals. I went in the booth and started recording my lyrics. While I'm in there working, I get interrupted by Mr. Maxey. He steps in and tells me I cannot use profanity. And it wasn't no suggestion. It was either, it was like a boundary. You know what I'm saying? It was a boundary, a rule. So look, like, hold on. What you mean I can't curse? That's when Mr. Maxey explains real plainly. He say World One Records is a wholesome label, you know, positive stuff. They don't condone profanity. They don't want to be that attached to their brand or their roster or their movement. Then he breaks down the bigger picture of what's going on in the building. Proving Ground had gospel ties. They was like a studio for a gospel record label. So the gospel representatives was there that day. I did meet them, but I don't remember their names. But I knew they wasn't for World One. What I understood was this was a business partnership. Proving Ground and that gospel side on one end, and World One on the other, working out of the same space. So it wasn't just we don't like cussing. It was this environment is built around clean content. And World One specifically is positioning itself as wholesome. Which wasn't no problem with that. But in that moment, I was heated enough to walk. But the spirit of Detroit was in the studio with me. That same spirit that rides with me in the streets helped me keep my calm in the booth. Instead of blowing up and leaving, I pulled myself together, revised my lyrics, and I still wrote the song. I found a way to say what I needed to say without the profanity. And I came out of there with a full song and another complete track in the can. And the reason this matters is because that was my first real introduction to how a label's identity can shape an artist's pen. Not just what you say, but how you learn to say it. So you can still get in the room and stay in the room. At the end of the session, we did make 2 cassette copies of the song, but they kept my reel. By that point, I had a balance on the session time. I owed them money. When you add everything up, the reel, the 65, I put down on the room, gas for my mama's car, food, all that, I ended up with about $155 left. But the problem was, by the time the studio clock stopped, the bill for the session, it was around $300. So I took that whole 155 I had left and I gave it to the studio. I walked out of there with zero in my pocket and a studio balance of 145. Still on the books. 145. That was all that was left between me and my masters. From their point of view, they were holding the reel until I came back and booked more time and took care of the balance. From my point of view, I had started the day with $500, paid for the reel, put money down on the session, covered my expenses, built the track, recorded the vocals, handed over every dollar I had left, and I still walked out without my masters in my hands. I left Proving Ground that day disappointed and a little disgruntled, but still thinking I would be back the same way I came in, pay the balance, get my reel, and keep it moving. What I ain't know then was that I'd never be back in the same capacity. And that balance on those masters would never get handled the way I thought it would. Quietest Kept, the soul knows. Lesson 1. If you don't know the rate, the clock will teach you. Lesson 2. Representation matters, especially when it's not your money. Lesson 3. Adaptability is a Detroit survival skill. I wanted to walk when they checked my lyrics, but I rewrote and I finished. Lesson 4. A balance ain't just money, sometimes it's leverage. They held the real. And quiet is kept. The soul knows.